Welcome back to Feel Good Breakfast Show. Expresso here on S3, and we are continuing our conversation. We've just wrapped up with World Defect Day, and we do need to address another pertinent issue, and that is the reality of a sharp rise in teenage pregnancy rates in South Africa. It is causing massive concern, as it should, with some calling it another pandemic. It's crucial to understand why this is happening, to develop effective strategies and support systems for these girls. And we have the perfect guest, social worker Jonathan Hoffenberg, returns to your Feel Good Breakfast Show to discuss some of the causes and potential ways that we can address this problem. And I meant we, because this is everybody's problem.
Definitely. Jonathan, when we talk about... Good morning. When we talk about teenage pregnancies, what age bracket are we're referring to, just to set some context?
Well, that's one of the alarming issues around this, rising problem, is that traditionally when you think about teen pregnancies, you think about teens, and often we also have the thought of teens as young women, so we're talking about girls that are 15 or 16. Yeah. The issue is that we've got girls as young as 10 that are getting pregnant now. And what I want to just give is in terms of the law, if you are over the age of 16 and you have sex with a minor, a girl between 16 and 12, that is known as statutory rape. But if you're two teenagers fooling around and without protection and you get pregnant, then that's permissible within the law. That's not seen as an offense. But if you're anybody having sex under the age of 12, that's rape. A child under the age of 12 cannot consent. And for all of us parents out there, I want you to think of how much consent a 13 to 16-year-old can really give. Yeah. And so many respects, and I think this is one of the key things that we need to change around this debate, is we put all the emphasis on the girls. We put all the emphasis on, oh, they're not making good choices. But this isn't about the choices that are being made by girls. This is about the fact that we have a society that is still patriarchal, yes, where boys and men are valued and have more power, yeah, and that is misogynistic, that is violent towards women. And we have sure, some of the stats definitely show that these are teenagers impregnating teenagers, but the more worrying fact is the fact that often we have older men that are preying on younger girls, and once they get a girl pregnant, they then move on to the next one. It's glorified, and it's glorified all over the world, and you often see it in a lot of hip-hop videos, this whole notion of the sugar daddy. And what is behind the sugar daddy is teen pregnancy.
Okay.
And that is the shocking stat, or in South Africa, the blesser, that particular concept. But let's take a look at it. I mean, you mentioned that we always focus on the girls. Yeah. And that's very unfair, because there are two parties here. Yeah. Yet all of the emphasis and the awareness is like, let's educate our girls. But our boys need to be educated. And I just think that we need to find a way of broaching that topic, because I know for a fact that there are so many girls who are fearing judgment and can't seek help, assistance, and advice because they're worried about how society sees them. You mentioned it in society. So let's talk about, how do we start looking at the equality of information provision, the equality of actually addressing the issue for both girls and boys? Where do we start with that?
Look, I mean, we've got to call a spade a spade. In this country, we have very, very mixed views around expression and human rights. We're still quite a conservative society when it comes to issues of sexuality. If you look at something like the opposition to the Bella Bill, and there are parts of the Bella Bill that want to bring in comprehensive sex education for all children.
Yes.
As a social worker, my message would be to parents, and you often hear parents saying, at what age do I need to talk to my children about sex?
Yeah.
We are pleasure-driven creatures. A young toddler will please themselves in a sexual manner that is often of a great embarrassment to their parents, when you see your toddler kind of rubbing against a desk or something like that.
Yes.
So the whole thing is that it's never too young to have that conversation. You should be having that conversation throughout your child's life, but you mitigate and mediate it according to the age, So one, we need to be teaching children that their bodies are precious, that their bodies are their own, that they shouldn't feel the obligation to do anything with their bodies that they don't want. Secondly, we need to be talking about consent, you know.
Yes.
And here I'm talking to boys and to parents, you know, teaching boys. We have culture, and you see it so much in social media, that hypes up the male archetype as the powerful, the machismo, you know. And then it's about informed choices around contraception. But that's the thing, when you were saying about the judgment that girls feel, the presumption is that girls have a choice. The presumption is that girls are able to have access to contraception.
Yeah.
The presumption is that they'll be supported by their community and by their parents in those choices, whether they choose to keep the baby, whether they choose to abort the baby.
Well, I know we need to wrap up this topic now. We've identified these various pillars that needs addressing. What can we do now to ensure those statistics don't continue to rise?
Like all parenting, have those real hard conversations with your teens, with your boys and with your girls. Emphasize that on social media, whether it's a hip-hop video, and I don't want to, you know, stamp out hip-hop, any music, you know, social media right now over-sexualizes all of teens. So giving them a realistic kind of, understanding. Should your teen know of girls that are pregnant, not about, it's not about victim shaming, you know, and then it's about having that conversation with sex, understanding that if they're using contraception, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're having sex. And that's the thing, is that a lot of parents, we're locked in the old view that it's my generation of, you know, it's prohibition. You can't ignore the genie that is out there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. This has been wonderful. Naturally, we should be talking about this a bit more often and for hours, but that is indeed all that we have time for. But thank you very much for bringing some of these things to our attention, some pearls of wisdom there for all parents. And I think that, as mentioned, this is something that is all of our problem. And I think, you know, it takes a village to raise not only a child, but this country. So let's all take responsibility as well. Big thanks to Jonathan, our social worker, on your Feel Good Breakfast show.